So, as a lot of you know, I'm adopted, and I also grew up mixed race in a white household. So, I want to talk a bit about the idea of what it was like growing up mixed race in a country where there wasn't that many mixed people around, and just the idea of never really having the other side of my ethnicity until a later date in life. Because as someone now who's 27 years old, you grow up with a lot of identity issues, being adopted, and also not being able to resonate with the other side of your heritage. Now, as far as I know, in regard to the adoption, my birth mother was white, and my birth father is black Jamaican, mixed with Chinese as well. So yeah, quite a rich heritage there. But for me, I grew up in a household with two very loving white parents, and I was raised Irish, which I am as well on the birth mother side. She was white Irish. But with that being said, I used to get a lot of questions when I was younger. A lot of questions in regard to where do I get my skin pigmentation from, where do I get my curly hair from, where do I get my dark features from. Because obviously, look, I talk Irish, I walk Irish, I am Irish, but to the naked eye, I probably wouldn't be what you'd call a stereotypical Irish person. And it really hurt when I was younger because I had to make up excuses because I didn't know where I was from. Because obviously, when you say you're adopted, that leads on to more questions. I had no idea about my family heritage until I was 21 years old. So what I used to do was, rest my mother's soul, her name was Sita. So obviously Sita sounds partly Spanish. So I used to say that my mother was Spanish and that's where I got my heritage from. I used to have to lie the whole time, which explains a lot now growing up why I have such identity issues because for the largest part of my life I didn't know who I was. Now obviously growing up Irish, growing up in this family, like my name's Tig, I belong to my parents. This is the environment that shaped me, this is the environment that molded me. There was still a big part of me missing. And it's funny because these days everybody wants to be mixed race. People will literally go off and get skin cancer to look the way I look, which is quite a novelty. But growing up as a kid, you don't want to be singled out. I could go back through all of my Gaelic pictures and all my rugby pictures, and I guarantee that you could spot me quicker than you could spot nearly any other person if you're looking for them. And for me, I always felt like I was singled out. Now, I'm not saying that in a victim mentality type of way, but I couldn't hide in a room full of people because I stuck out way too much. I couldn't be that type of person who used to blend into the background because even we go beyond the way I look, the way I speak, the way I act, it's just, I was never meant to live a quiet, boring life. That's what I tell myself anyway. I don't think I'd ever have the choice to do so. I'm now 27, I'm just accepting the fact where, like, you know what? If this is the life I'm going to live, this is the life that I'm going to live. But it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy. And also, like, I did suffer a good bit of racial abuse. Now, I don't want to invalidate or minimize my own feelings towards this, but obviously, racial abuse is racial abuse. I remember once before playing against a team in Drogheda, and it was a Gaelic match. We absolutely destroyed them. They weren't great, but I had to mark one lad who just said some horrible shit throughout the whole game. I remember going to the ref during the game, and he just looked at me up and down and played on because obviously he's experienced this on that side of town. That's what happens. Me, as a 12-year-old, 13-year-old, I didn't. Called every racial slur under the sun, bar the N-word. I don't know. As somebody who does come from a mixed black heritage, I don't look particularly black, which is another issue that I have. But yeah, called every racial slur under the sun. And I remember getting into the car with my dad after the game, and I was bawling my eyes out crying, as you would imagine being a insecure 12-year-old having to have all that said to him. And I remember I looked my dad square in the face and I said, why can't I just be white like the rest of them? And sure, what could he do? The poor man. My poor father had to try and answer that question. And look, his reply was as good as any. He just said fuck him. Simple as fuck him. But it didn't leave that anguish that I had about my own skin pigmentation. It was quite difficult. It was very hard to establish my own enjoyment with my own skin for the longest time. Now obviously as you get older, you hit 17, 18, the light skin genetics tend to kick in a bit more. I found a hairstyle that suited me. I lost weight. This is when Jersey Shore, Geordie Shore, all the boys with the fake tan and the, hitting the sunbed started coming out. All of a sudden, everybody wanted to be light skinned, wanting to be sallow skinned, and you're kind of in then, but it didn't change the fact growing up that it was terrible. Now obviously I'm happy that it came to a point where I find myself to feel more accepted in this world. But I would always come back to one thing, and it's that I can never find somebody who looks like me in a crowd. Now obviously I'm not just talking about brown people in general, but people who have the same type of genetic features as me. I like the idea of being able to walk down a street and just see a load of people who share similar characteristics towards myself. Hence why I want to go traveling. I want to try and find an environment where I feel like I can have that. But all in all, it was tough growing up. It wasn't easy. So if you can relate to all of this, just understand that being unique is a blessing. It's not a curse, man. And the fact that you are maybe different in whatever way, that will pay dividends for you in the long run. It's just up to yourself to recognize your own beauty and your own worth. Because when it's all said and done, skin color is a man-made social construct. Nobody is really black, nobody is really white. And I say this because in an alternate universe, white is black, black is white, red is blue, blue is green. You understand what I mean? Colors are made, okay? And they are associated with certain people. There's only one race, and that's the human race. Obviously, growing up when you're younger, a lot of people tend to take out their own anger on you, and a lot of times they don't know it's on a personal level, so they just make fun or slur what they see. And what they may see is somebody who doesn't look exactly like them. So remember that it ain't your fault, and don't let other people's words define who you are, because life is hard enough as it is. But the second you start realizing that you can be your own best friend and you don't have to take on what other people say to you, it gets a bit easier.